In the studio with me this morning is Warren County Sheriff Martin Edwards. Good morning, Sheriff.
Good morning.
How are you, sir?
I'm well. Yourself?
Good. I was hoping for a little warmer weather for kids to get out and trick or treat on Tuesday.
Yeah, I think they're going to be wearing coats with their
Yes.
costumes over them. So be a little bit chilly to be out there. I'll bet you they'll get from one door to the other a little bit quicker.
Yes, they will. There'll be a lot more cars moving out and about.
There will probably be a lot of cars with mommies and daddies trailing the kids. So.
Sure. Yeah, and you wanted to talk about Halloween and Halloween safety.
Just briefly, I'm always concerned predominantly in Little York and Roseville with state highways going right through town. So I want to encourage folks, check your local listings to see when they'll be out. But I think it'd be a little bit hard to miss because, all the kids will be out in force. When you see that, you don't have to drive at the speed limit. You can drive under the speed limit and really watch for those little ones. Never had an incident, don't ever want to have a tragic incident. But again, with two towns with a major state highway going through them, we just want to encourage people to look and listen, and make sure that it's safe out there for everybody. And it's just not just in the highway towns, even the smaller communities with the public streets. Some of them aren't very well lit. And I'm hoping that a lot of the kids might have flashlights or something blinking on them to alert people to their presence. But again, it's a fun time for the kids. We want it to be fun and safe. And as always, we will be out in the small towns patrolling. And you can pretty much bet we'll take pretty strict enforcement on the speed limits through town. So it just takes a minute to be safe.
Yes, it does. So, yep, good reminders. You need to drive a little slower on Halloween night, especially from the hours of about 4:45 to about 8 o'clock tends to be the heart of the season of Halloween trick-or-treating.
Yeah, it once it's done, it dries up pretty fast, so you don't see too many stragglers out there.
And a lot of our towns are doing different types of trunk or treats. So there are nice places to go. Like here in Monmouth, I think there's a big trunk or treat at the First Christian Church. There's one at the fire station right here on the North Fire Station. So there are opportunities.
There are. I got an invite from Kirkwood Fire Department. They're going to be doing it as well.
Nice.
I don't know I don't want to leave one car sitting there for a long period of time. We need to be active and driving around because might not have enough people to cover every town at once. So guys might have to be gravitating from one town to the next. So
Sure.
I just want to make sure our presence is seen and known out there.
Okay. And also just a reminder for those in town driving, on Friday at 2 o'clock is the Warren County Library trick or treat around the square. And last I looked, 255 people had checked that they were going to this event. We'll be a part of the event as well, handing out candy. So heads up, you're going to see a lot of little ones and their parents on Friday around 2 o'clock.
So, but anyway, we want everybody to have fun. That's what it's all about.
What's your Halloween costume this year?
Probably driving a squad car, dressing up like a sheriff, I guess.
There you go. Okay. It's also a breather maybe today, tomorrow for our farmers who have been really blessed with some good weather to get out in the fields. We want to remind people about big equipment on the road.
That is a continuing concern, and even after the crop is out, there's going to be a lot of tillage equipment out. People will be putting on anhydrous, so the toolbars will be out there. So, up until the ground is frozen, you can probably expect some activity out there. We did have an incident yesterday where a vehicle on the road met. I didn't go to the accident, but I was told the operator was pulling a chisel plow. The point of the matter is somebody, frankly, it was the operator of the chisel plow, was too far over the line and actually struck a vehicle on 67 north of town. So in this case, we weren't looking at the person in the car so much as the equipment operator, but it can happen. And I know that even from my own experience, as much as possible, you're going to want to avoid the highways if you have big equipment. But in some cases, you have no choice because that's where your field entrances are. Or in some cases, guys are pulling wagons to the elevators. So it's going to happen. I've talked about this before. Have a little patience, give them some room, and work with each other. And the operator will work with you as well. And people just need to slow down, sometimes stop, signal who's going to go, who's going to get over. and just make sure that we pass each other safely. And I always want to reiterate that when you're out on rural roads, particularly in hilly areas, again, you might want to consider that there could be something at the bottom of that hill once you top it. And if you're going 55 miles an hour and you come across somebody going 25 miles an hour with taking up the road, there might not be much room to, stop or react to it. So again, have a little patience. Know that they're out there. They're trying to get their work done. And that's what we are. We're a farming community. So
Yeah,
we all just have to work with it.
we do. And put the cell phones down.
Put the cell phones down. Absolutely.
Okay, how about employment? How are you sitting on employment? Do you need people?
We've actually been doing pretty darn good these last few months.
That's a good update.
It is. I used to have a lot of problems with attrition with people going to other agencies, but our employment level has been steady. We were, of course, behind the power curve on getting people to school, so I'm still running through that, trying to get fully trained on the correctional officers. So, I'm always having to deal with that period of time when people are gone for 6 to 7 weeks to go to school, but it's been a lot better. Our jail population has gone down considerably.
Why is that, Sheriff?
I don't know that I want to attribute it completely to the Safety Act. I just think there was a period where some of the cases were finally moved along on people. Several months ago, we were running over. We were at capacity and over capacity at one point, and now it's dropped significantly to maybe 4 or 6. Now, the Safety Act does come into play. I know one of the deputies made an arrest the other night on somebody who ordinarily would have been placed in jail to await a detention hearing. But in this case, it was a catch and release on possession of methamphetamine and a suspended driver's license. Somebody that had no business being out driving, much less having drugs in the car. So we are starting to see some of what this act has forced us to do. And I think all of us in the law enforcement community are still trying to get our heads around how this works. And of course, we're working closely with the state attorney to make sure we're in compliance with this new law out there too. But that's not an automatic you're going to get let go in some cases. If you have a domestic violence incident or if you're a continuing danger to yourself or others, you're going to be brought into the jail and held.
Sure.
And it's kind of an all or nothing thing, so there's no bond anymore. So you might sit there for a longer period of time than you would have normally.
Right. Even if you're innocent.
Well, that's determined next door at some point.
Sure.
Obviously, we're not bringing people in unless there's probable cause to do so.
Sure.
So
I was reading about a story up in Chicago where, the point was to try to help people who didn't have money be able to get out of being detained. And this one fellow was apparently innocent, but it didn't matter. There's no cash bond.
Right.
So he couldn't get out anyway because it was what the act was at the time. Again, this is just a story up in the Trib, but so the Safety Act locally, you're saying the jail population, there is a correlation in the overall jail population right now?
There's a slight correlation at this point.
Okay.
But I've said all along, at some point these cases are going to hit to the point of disposition. People are still going to get jail time once the case is disposed of, unless, of course, they get probation. So I still think this Safety Act was some kind of a problem fixer for larger areas than ours. I mean, we're relatively small here. We've always been able to work with the state attorney on some cases, but unfortunately, sometimes you run into repeat offenders that just aren't learning their lesson. So some of them might have sat here longer than others, but nonetheless, at the end of the day, we're just trying to keep the streets safe and keep the habitual offenders off the streets. It just seems to be a little bit tough to do that anymore.
Well, coming up November 16th, our legislators will be here, all 4 of them. That includes Representatives Swanson and Hammond, as well as Senators Anderson and Halpin. They'll all 4 be here, and the Safety Act is certainly a concern. Our law enforcement would like to speak to our representatives and share with them what has occurred since September 18th and make sure that they're well aware so that when they go back to Springfield outside of the veto session, they can maybe make changes to this act, this law. So we'll find out.
there were trailer bills, and I can't chapter and verse tell you about that, but there were some trailer bills that were enacted after that went into law, but it still hasn't completely fixed the issue, in my opinion. And if I can transition just a little bit, every opportunity I get to talk to a legislator, I bring up the lack of mental health services in this state, particularly with people that need a longer term intervention. We seem to be having an increasingly higher incident of encounters with people here in the county, and in some cases, we're a little bit loath to even charge them with a crime because, frankly, they don't know what they're doing. We've been successful in finding bed space in the Quad Cities for at least a 72-hour involuntary admission for assessments. But what we find continually is after this period of time, people are still back home. They're back out on the street, and the problem has simply not been resolved. So we're continuing to deal with the same people over and over again. And this isn't situations where somebody's merely having, some depression, or they're having something, disturbing in their life. These are a lot of people that have altered perceptions. They're combative. They're involved in some type of an activity that causes people to call us and have us show up. And unfortunately, a lot of times there's what would ordinarily be considered a criminal act, such as damage to property or a battery on a person. They're going to come to jail. And any sheriff will tell you a jail is not a mental health facility, never designed to be one. There needs to be a place for these people to be taken so they can receive the proper treatment. And we just don't have that here. And it's short term, it's not being fixed. And it's a stressor on families. We talk to the families. They're fully aware that there's a problem. In some instances, they become afraid of their own family members because of some of the behaviors that they're manifesting. So it's trying on them as well. And obviously they want things to be better, and it's just not getting there. And I never miss an opportunity to talk to my representatives about it. I keep driving on it. And if I get a chance on the 16th, I'll be bringing it up again. I really, really, really want the state of Illinois to start thinking more about getting bed space and providing those services to people that need them.
Okay. Advice to families who are having to deal with a situation with a loved one who needs help. What advice do you have for families?
In some cases, if we haven't had to be involved ourselves yet, they can go petition the court to have somebody taken to a facility. But we're right back to the same boat. They're not there for very long before they're back again. I'm not a mental health professional. I don't pretend to be. But in some cases, there's, for lack of a better word, straightened out a little bit, but then the meds stop being taken, and then we're kind of right back in that same position.
That's the tough one, is sometimes the problem can be managed with the right amount or right type of medication, but if the medication isn't being taken, then you get the repeat instances.
You do, and it's not unheard of that people feel that they're getting better. They don't feel the need to keep taking the medication.
Sure.
And unfortunately, they slip back into what was the problem was in the first place. So again, it's probably a team effort, even with family and loved ones. So obviously, we don't want things to be like that. Now, one of the things that we're also dealing with when we do have people that are incarcerated for some reason, and there is a direction to take them to a facility, either for an evaluation or some type of a committal. Again, we used to have a 20-day, we were provided a 20-day window, which of course wasn't being answered by the Department of Human Services anyway because they didn't have the bed space. So we found people languishing in the jails much longer than they should have been. And now they've extended that out to 60 days. And it kind of aggravates me. Again, not a place for these people to be. And a lot of times we have to isolate them from other inmates because there will be problems. and we don't want somebody to have a fight or or get hit or injured or something like that. So in some cases, we have to shunt people off to a separate place on their own, which kind of creates difficulties with our cell management. And ultimately, it's just not a place for them. Mm-hmm. It's not where they should be. We would like to see them get the help. We'd like to get them to these facilities, but we're continually hung up by the lack of bed space.
Okay. Well, we will continue to hope that we get the resources in the state to try to provide opportunities to help people in our communities like ours.
Yes.
Okay. Sheriff, I will see you very soon for the Veterans Day program on November 11th at the Monmouth American Legion. That's coming up, and I'll see you at Freezing for Food as well as the Legislative Roundtable.
We've been seeing each other an awful lot.
Well, no, we haven't. Not until this month.
That's true.
and seeing each other media-wise, not that I've been at the jail. It's county board meetings you're seeing me at.
Well, we got a space for you over there if we need it. So
no, I don't think so. Sheriff Martin Edwards with us on 1330 WRAM.